All right, now that the menu bar is out of the way, it is time for us to move on to the next exciting part of the 3ds Max user interface. The main toolbar.
Sounded like a game show. That was awesome.
As Bill is now demonstrating, this is known as the main toolbar. In our particular case, we are running at a lower than standard resolution these days, and because of that, the main toolbar does not fit in its entirety on the screen. So as you'll notice, as Bill takes his mouse and moves to an area on the main toolbar that is not over a button or drop down, he gets a little hand. By clicking and holding with that little hand, we can slide back and forth. Now most of you guys
tear it off.
Oh, now he's going to scare you guys. Relax. Just ignore what he's doing for a second. We'll get into this type of fancy stuff later. But yes, you can do fancy stuff like that. Yeah, it's okay, Zach. Just relax.
Okay,
see, now Zach's all freaked out.
Yeah, I'm all excited.
Breathe.
Now,
undo.
As we've already stated previously and going through the user interface, we are not in here to teach you every single thing, because otherwise we would have a category in the Max Fundamentals class called the user interface, and when you got to the end, you would have gone through 80 hours of video and you would be a master.
That would rock.
Yeah, that would rock.
Without doing any projects whatsoever.
It'd be boring.
We don't want to do that.
At the same time, we don't want to go through here and say, this section deals with undo. Watch this. Let me see this. This deals with undoing. This deals with some hierarchy stuff and some cool selection stuff and some transforms and some, we'd start dealing with coordinate systems and some snapping and selections. And okay, well, so that's pretty much it. So that's going to wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks
wow.
So we are going to
that was awesome.
Talk about, well, thank you, each of the buttons on here. Mm-hmm. And Bill will be giving some demonstrations as well. But what I'm trying to do is remind you guys that I'm not wanting you to get into this to the point of where you're, oh gosh, I got to remember all this because I'm still new to the application. I may be new to 3D in general. It's all good.
Right,
follow through it. We're going to break this down in detail later.
That's right. We're going to keep from branching off into too many topics.
What is it I said earlier, Zach? Off video, we're farmers. We're planting the seed now.
That's right.
You may not know what the heck we're talking about when we say the reference coordinate system. You may just take, a second, swallow real hard and go, okay. But later on, we're going to mention it again, and you're going to go, hey, I kind of remember something about that. I don't know what, but it won't be as scary of a word because you've heard it before.
That's right.
So, Bill, starting on the far left-hand side of the main toolbar, what do we have?
We have the undo feature.
Ooh.
I love that button.
In graphical form now.
Dun, dun,
yes, it is. This allows you to basically backtrack a command.
Yeah, just a basic undo.
And let me do something. Let me get a sphere on the screen real quick. Let me just go.
He's going to do it the fancy way.
Oh, here you go.
Again, for those of you that are beginners, don't let that panic you.
I'm going to select the sphere.
Yes, but grab your move tool.
My move tool.
So
he's go up here. I'm going to hit move.
And he's going to move it. Let's say move it in Z.
Move it in Z.
All right, now move it in X.
Now I'm going to move it in X.
All right, now he's done a couple things. Before you do anything else, let me explain this. He's created a sphere. He has selected the sphere. He's transformed it. He's moved it. He's moved it up, then he's moved it over. But while doing that, he's done some other stuff, too. What did he do, Zach?
He selected.
He moved his viewport around.
Oh, yeah.
I moved it around twice.
This is a very important thing to understand when Bill goes to demonstrate the undo. Bill, show us how that really cool undo button works.
Well, here's the undo button, and you press it, and you get an undo.
Ooh, so now we just moved. Undo again. Now we're moving down in Z. Oh, so we undid that one. Move again. Ooh, look at that. Now we've unselected. And if you move again, it's like, before the dawn of man,
However, something hasn't changed.
The dawn of sphere, yeah. That happens to be our viewport.
Viewport manipulation is still the same.
That's right. Remember, we talked about that in the last video, and we also talked about that in the viewports video as well. It's a difference when you're dealing with undoing things that you're doing to manipulate objects, animation, etc., when compared to things that you're doing to manipulate what your viewport is showing you.
That's right. Undoing actions and undoing view changes are two entirely separate things.
Now, if you do want to undo the view change, there are two ways to do that. Just a quick review. Go up to Views, hit Undo View Change.
Or Shift-C.
Or Shift-C.
That's right.
And one more time.
Very cool. Now, let's go back up there to that undo and talk about the redo.
Yes, the redo lets you undo the previous undo.
Lets you go to the future.
Exactly.
Once the future's been defined. Yeah.
So there.
Kind of needs to be.
We have our sphere again. It's selected. And I'll bet it's going to move twice.
Bing, I bet you up
bing.
and then over.
Yep.
Wow.
There it is.
I am just too cool.
Yeah. Now, actually, something that's really cool about the undo feature is if you right-click on it, you get a list of all of your past commands.
To be honest with you, I wish every application had this. This is the coolest thing in the world. Now, you can't go in there and just select a particular command sometime in the past to say undo without it affecting everything after that point all the way up to where you are now.
Right, you're not going to actually pull something out of the center of the list and just undo that one thing. You're going to get everything leading back to it.
And if you relate that to the real world, it's the same way. You know, if we pick a major war that happened a long time ago and we had the powers to go back and undo that,
like Superman flying around the Earth.
Yeah, exactly. But everything's going to change from there forward. I mean, it affects everything.
Right.
And so the same thing happens here. Okay, yeah, that hurt, huh?
Like, wait a minute, now we're getting into time travel as an analogy.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, we are in 3D animation, virtual reality.
But it is the same thing.
Eat your heart out.
You'll notice as he clicks on one thing, which happened to be in this case select, let's just pretend that's one of our major past wars, you'll notice it's going to affect everything after that all the way up to where we are currently. So it's going to undo all of this stuff.
Sure, so you select the command that you want to undo to, and then hit the undo button.
Boom.
And now we're back to where we have created our sphere, which was the first command.
Now, what a lot of people don't know is this command was created exactly for Zach. Because, you know, we talked about in the menu lesson that sometimes he likes to, you know, set his undos to several thousand, and then he'll work for a day. Then he'll spend an hour hitting the undo button. How convenient is it being able to right-click, bring up a list, scroll to the bottom of 2,000 commands, select the last one, and say, undo.
It is pretty cool that you can choose your level of undo
You can.
as well.
And so it is convenient.
It's put off carpal tunnel by at least a week or so.
Exactly.
Now, if you want to redo a bunch of commands that you have previously undone, right-click on the redo button, and then you can choose them all and hit redo, and you're back to the last command that you've done.
Only we can make a 30-minute lesson from undo and redo. All right, let's go ahead and move on.
Moving right along, we're going to talk about select and link. Now, this is pretty cool. This basically allows you to take one object and parent it to another object so it inherits the transforms of that target object.
Whoa, Bill, that was some big fancy talk. For those those out there that may be new to working with 3D, this is where we start to create relationships.
Okay.
You know,
Hierarchies.
A parent and a child, a hierarchy. So give us a very basic demonstration so that they can find some way to easily swallow all that really cool stuff you just
Yeah, that
threw
was
out.
kind of a mouthful. Well, I'm going to hit Control-Z to undo a few commands. So we get our sphere back in the center again. I'm going to zoom in on it just a little bit. And then I think I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to select our scale command, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key while I scale it down just a little bit.
Right, he is going the fanciest way about.
I know, this is like
in there.
hardcore.
I kind of like to throw people into the fire. What can I say? We're going to hit OK here. And now
all he did was he made a copy of it, basically, which is something we'll cover in detail
small
later.
Copy of it.
There's another sphere in there.
Inside.
Dun, dun,
I'm
dun.
going to, while this new sphere is still selected, go to the Move tool. I'm going to move it out of the way so we can see it. Looks kind of like a moon. So now I'm going to go up into our Select and Link tool.
You know, well, let's take what you just said and run with it. It is a moon.
Okay.
And it's going to orbit
no moon.
our planet.
It's a space station.
It's going to orbit our planet in the center. So it needs to become a child of the planet.
Right. In order to do that, we use our Select and Link, which basically allows you to select the entity and then link it to another one. So I'm actually dragging.
That's right. He has
now.
not let go of the left mouse
Actually,
button
move
yet.
your cursor around while you're holding it down. Show them that really cool dashed
The
rubber
rubber
band line. Yeah.
And it basically, as you hold it down, it's saying, link me, link me.
Link
so
me to
now,
what?
when you move to another object or entity, you can now see the Select and Link icon appear saying this is a valid thing that you could link to.
Yeah,
I'm
and
going
we'll
to
be
let go of the mouse button.
we'll be getting deeper into the nuances of parenting a little bit later, and all the different ways you can do it, how you can control it, how you can visualize it, all the cool things it's there for.
And you'll notice there was a momentary flash of like a bounding box around the entire thing, just letting you know that the parenting did indeed just take place.
Kind of like a graphical confirmation.
That's right. So what does this give us? I mean, right now, if you were to move your little bitty moon or space station, what
I'm
would
going to hit
happen?
W.
Okay, so you're going to use a hotkey.
Yeah.
All right.
So now I'm going to click on the Z axis.
Interesting. No effect whatsoever. Think about it. Parents that have children, those children can sneak off all the time.
Sure.
And
Sure.
parent has no clue.
I did.
I'm going to go
So did
undo
I.
that move. So now let's see what happens when you click on the Earth. Here's the Earth.
Round.
And now I'm going to click Select and Rotate, which I know we haven't got to up here yet, but
Because
you
the
kind
Earth
of see what it
rotates,
does.
right?
Yeah. So now let me go down to the Z axis again. Click on that so it's highlighted. This sort of like constricts our rotation to only rotating in Z.
Oh, wow, look what's happening
That's
to
right.
our little moon.
And now our space station is in geosynchronous orbit over the planet Alderaan, waiting to fire its super laser.
Our letters
that
from
thing
Lucas will be coming in any day. So basically what's happening, you'll notice, is the center of the world for our little bitty moon is now the sphere. So as the bigger sphere, the planet in this case, rotates, his whole universe is rotating, and the child goes along with him. He inherits those transformations, basically.
And not only does he inherit rotate, he also inherits move.
Yep.
And he also inherits scale.
Mm-hmm. And this is very powerful, and for those of you that may be new to working with 3D, this is something that you will use a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But we will, again, be spending a great deal of time with this later on and using it a lot throughout our projects in this class.
Back to the toolbar.
So let's say we want to unlink this previously linked object. We go to the next icon here on our toolbar, Unlink Selection. Click it. And now if we rotate our Earth, our moon no longer is associated with it.
Cool.
Right. We've just undone that selection.
Okay, very cool.
Okay, the next icon here is Bind to Space Warp. Basically, this is kind of a dynamics thing. We don't really want to dive too deeply into this right now.
It's advanced.
But this allows us to take an object and kind of like link it or associate it with a force field of some kind.
Ooh.
Max comes with force field.
I was going to say, wow, and space warps and
wow.
yeah.
Fun stuff. Yeah, okay, let's keep on going.
Okay.
So now let's get into selecting.
Okay. Obviously a very important thing
Yes.
when we're working with a 3D scene.
Something we've been seeing so far, something we've actually been doing. This would be the select object tool right here. This allows us to click on an object and select it. Very simple.
Okay.
And we could do things to that object. But
If we want to select multiple objects.
If you want to select multiple objects, you actually do a click and drag, and now we start getting a little bit of marching ants here.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just...
Marching ants. This is now a Photoshop
Do we have
tutorial.
to use marching ants for selecting multiple objects?
Absolutely not. There are many ways to select multiple objects.
Using just the select object tool, what else can we do?
Using just the select
Are there any
object tool.
hotkeys that we can use
Yes,
as well?
there is. You can actually hold down the control key and then click subsequent object.
Oh, whew, thank heavens, because
Yeah.
I'm used to these other applications that let you do that. That's good.
Yes.
Actually, and that's just a word to the wise for those of you who come from other applications, be they Windows-based or actual 3D apps. A lot of you might be used to holding down the Shift key. That's a habit you must break.
Yes.
You must hold down Control and not Shift.
Because if you hold down the Shift key and do something to an object, you clone it.
Clone it. And we'll be talking about cloning a bit down the road.
Now, I want to undo this action. Since we've been kind of talking about undos, but I don't feel like letting go of my mouse button and going all the way up to undo and then clicking that. So
you're going to just right-click.
I just hit the right-click button. I clicked the right mouse button, and that basically cancels that command.
Very nice.
I know we're throwing it a lot here, guys.
Don't worry, that'll be
let's
covered
keep
100
going.
more times between
Oh,
now and
yes, it will.
30 minutes from now.
So let's say we want to select by name. And look at that little tooltip popping up there.
my
Yeah,
favorite
for instance,
thing.
you may have 15,000 objects in your scene.
Right.
The select by name is my favorite thing about Max.
Wow, that's cool. So here, and we get a little dialog box coming up here. And we have multiple spheres, and these are the objects that are in our scene. And so if you want to select them both, you can highlight them both and hit select, and you're kind of selecting them by name.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And then up here, I kind of left this to last.
Go ahead and pull that up real quick.
Sure.
The select by name again. Which the hotkey for that?
Hotkey is H.
H. Very good.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm going to hit H right now.
So let's go and bring that up real quick. I just wanted to point out that you do have the ability when dealing with a scene with 15,000 objects in it to, as you can see on the right-hand side of this dialog, you can sort alphabetically, type, color, size, different ways that you may want to, let me see a mouse real quick.
Sure.
Different ways that you may want to organize your scene to help you get back to objects quickly. And then what's really convenient is once you start getting cameras, lights, helpers, those space warps we were talking about a second ago. All of these different things in here. You can use this list by types area right here to help. Let's say maybe
like
I
a
want
filter.
to. Yeah, maybe I just want to select
Exactly.
cameras. Undo cameras, invert the selection, and now I'd have just a list of cameras. So make use of these things. I see a lot of people that are new to 3ds Max, and they get in here, and they just start digging through a bunch of objects over here, and I'm looking at them going, why are you digging through lights and cameras looking for a piece of geometry when you can help narrow it down quickly over here? And then there are some other things that we're going to be getting into later when we start talking about selection sets and a few extra control things, if you will, for selection. So anyways, and even a type in up here as well. Yep. So I just wanted to kind of point that out real quickly. See, look at that. S. Everything with an S in it has now been highlighted.
Type P, nothing.
So, because there's no P's there. So anyway, so there's just a little bit more about that select by name, because that's an important one to make.
Speaking of filters, up here we have the selection filter drop-down. And this allows you, again, basically to do the same thing you were doing in the select by name, to select only certain types of objects. So let's say you only want to select the cameras in your scene. You want to get rid of them for some reason. If you select cameras in this selection filters drop-down, you can no longer select your geometry.
Right, because the geometry is not a camera.
That's correct.
And moving right along, going into the selection regions.
Start talking about our little marching ants again.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
And that's kind of what I did here when I did this click and drag, and I selected multiple objects. Now you can perform transforms on multiple objects if you'd like to. So this is the rectangular selection region.
Now this is very cool because I love this button. It is the first time that we see that little tiny arrow in the lower right-hand corner of a button, which is going to be very important across the user interface of 3ds Max.
That's right.
This is called a flyout.
Flyout.
Yes.
That's right. Click and hold. Wow.
You have many things here.
Uncle Bill, that is so cool. I can't believe all those different neat little patterns of marching ants.
Well, children. But, so we have rectangular, just like it says, and this is the circular selection region, which, kind of does exactly what it says.
Yeah. I never use that.
Yeah, I can't recall ever using that either.
It's so cool, and I never use it.
But it works.
Yeah.
And here's sort of like a make-your-own selection region, kind of by clicking.
Polygonal selection.
Yes. You actually have to start with a drag. And then from then on, so if we only want to select this one here, that was a crazy way to do that. Come on, finish up. You can do it. Yeah, I don't use this one a lot. There you go.
I think you can double-click and end it, can't you?
Let me find out.
I'm trying to remember because I haven't actually...
Yes, you can.
Booyah.
Thank you, sir.
Blam.
Mucho appreciado. And moving on, we actually have the ability to kind of make a little lasso. Oh, yeah. Interesting.
And there you go.
I tend to mostly use the rectangular one
Yeah,
myself.
I almost never change that.
Except this one's kind of cool, the paint selection region.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
If you want to you have a bunch of objects or you have a bunch of, sub-objects, and you can actually just kind of paint as you go.
Awesome.
Bring that back to here. And also the Q hotkey will let you toggle among these different types of selection.
Very nice.
As I'm hitting Q.
Now we're going to move over to the next icon, which is really important in regards to how the selection is going to work. Go ahead and demonstrate.
Sure thing. Right now we have it set to basically...
Crossing,
yeah. So that all we have to do is have our little selection rectangle...
touch,
and exactly. Object. And then they're selected. But now if you switch it to window, you actually do that with a click.
Notice that the smaller sphere was completely inside our selection area, and then he was touching the large sphere, but the large sphere was not all the way inside.
It wasn't passing all the way through.
So with it not passing all the way through, it was not being selected, only the small sphere.
Right.
Now, I've taught several classes over Max, and I always get those guys who are totally new to 3ds Max. They're like, ooh, that's not really all that cool.
Ooh, that's actually kind of important.
Just wait.
Yeah, this becomes very helpful later.
Just you wait.
Okay, marching right along on the main toolbar, we now get into our transform tools.
Da-da-da.
We have select and move, select and rotate, and select and scale.
And we'll keep these real quick because we're going to talk about them in greater detail later.
Definitely.
But the bottom line is you click on the tool, you get a manipulator, and you can go in there, grab the little handles, and drag it around.
Yep.
Move it, you can rotate it, you can scale it.
And you can actually select and transform in one step if you so desire.
Yeah. So you just use a little gizmo there, your little visual manipulator, and do your thing.
Right.
Cool.
And same with rotate.
We'll be getting deeper into transformations a little bit later.
Yes, absolutely. You'll notice with scale that that button is a flyout indicated by the triangle in the bottom right-hand corner, meaning if Bill clicks and holds with the left mouse button, you get a flyout with different types of scales.
Right. And we have select and uniform scale, select and non-uniform scale, and select and squash, which I
Maintaining
like.
volume,
It's
yeah.
pretty fun. I mean, if
There
you want
almost
to
needs
make
to be
like
a sound effect.
Yeah.
Like something squishy.
We're going to see this in Project 1,
Which is
actually.
my squishy.
And let's keep moving. Now we're going to talk about our reference coordinate systems in Max.
Now, because
We're going to
this-
mention them.
Yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
mention it because this does get a bit more complicated for somebody that's new to working with 3D in general.
Right.
So we're going to keep this very brief for the moment.
This basically allows you to change how you move around in 3D space in Max.
That's right. There's all sorts of different ways to influence what really is X, Y, and Z, those particular directions, if you will. And there's different circumstances that you may want. For instance, if you build a box, let's say in a top view.
How about a cube?
The reason I was thinking of a box is I was thinking of like a 2x4.
I'm with you.
You know what I'm going for?
But it's over now.
I know, but
We
he
made
can
it
change it
cute.
with the
Yeah.
parameters. That's a thick as 2x. That's a beam.
That's right.
Don't
But
have
now
that
let's
dropped
say
on my head.
let's say you take that and
It's
then
a
you
refrigerator on its
you
side.
rotate it at a 45-degree angle. So he's going to grab the rotate tool and he's going to rotate it. All right, so like such. Now let's say he needs to slide it. He needs to move it. Now if he grabs the move tool right now, if we wanted to move it along the way it has been turned, we've got a problem. We're going to have to move in both X and Y, and it's going to be very difficult to know that we have accurately moved it where it has slid along the parallel
Right.
from where it's lying.
That's right.
But this is where we could go into our reference coordinate system and we can change it. So let's say we go down to like local.
Let's give local a try.
Now if we move it in
Oh,
X.
look at this. Look at how Y is pointing now.
So yeah, we could now move it along that way.
Sure.
Or we could slide it along X. How
Like a train
convenient.
car?
Yeah, you got it. Very convenient. So that you can see that's just a very quick example how this can become very useful. And it is very important, especially when we start getting into animation a little later.
Sure. And again, we're going to have a separate video for that.
Right.
Okay, now let's get into centers and how you go about manipulating objects about its center point. Now, there are multiple ways of doing this. There's three, actually. This is using the local pivot point of each object. This is a flyout. Or we can use, let's say we have a selection of objects. We can use the center of this selection, or you could use the center of the transform coordinate system. And again, we're going to be talking about this in much detail later. I just wanted to
A
point
quick
these out
way
for
to
you guys.
give them a little bit better of a visual is select all three objects.
Sure.
There.
Get your
All right.
rotate tool. Rotate.
All right, now if you switch.
Now we're actually using the selection center. So we're using the center point of our entire selection.
Right. It's like an average location.
Yeah.
And you'll notice everybody's spinning around what you would think would be the center of all of that.
Sure.
But now if you was to change it over to different types.
Now this would be using the center of each individual object.
Now watch this. All three
Look
objects
at
are
that.
rotating around their centers. Very nice. So now you guys have just a very quick understanding of what this is going to allow you
Sure.
to do.
Right. Now, this is something that is very closely related to the different reference transform coordinate systems, so we'll be talking about them kind of in unison a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let's get into the select and manipulate button. Just real quick, this allows you to move a virtual slider in your viewport.
That's right.
Ooh.
So just to sum it up, we have the ability to make virtual sliders, put them on our screens in our viewports to help us control various things that we might need to manipulate a lot. This is really when you start getting into setting up control systems and things like that, and it's definitely a more advanced topic. And this will allow you to get in there and manipulate that.
Sure. Now let's move along. Let's talk about our snap tools just a little bit. We're going to devote an entire video to snapping because it's very important. So we just want to talk about it real quick. Snapping, it allows you to take your cursor and to snap it to one or more different types of things.
Right.
It's basically for precision placement of objects in one form or another, whether it's actual position in 3D space, precision rotations, and so forth.
Right.
And actually, and again, we're going to go this in detail later, but if you right-click on the snap toggle button, you can bring up all the different things that you can snap to.
Cool.
And you can also do angle snapping for rotations. And now this I like. This I use a lot.
So you'll notice in the little number that's showing up in your viewport how he's getting 5-degree increments as he's rotating. As opposed to if he turns it off, you're not going to get 5-degree increments. It's going to be nice and smooth.
Nice and smooth.
Yeah, look at that. So now you see the decimal point. Excellent.
Yes.
Cool.
And then here we have our percentage snap. This is handy when snapping scale or things that have percentage. And now we have our spinner snap toggle. This is useful for when we're moving our spinners up and down, which we really haven't talked about spinners yet.
Well, we haven't run into any just yet.
Yeah, we'll get to them soon.
But let's do a quick example here of doing a move on an object. Now we have these spinners here, and if you wanted to move it, you can, of course, click our transformation gizmo and move it that way. Or you could go down here, and we can move it using our spinner. And by having the spinner snap turned on, it'll now snap in basically increments of 1. You turn that off.
And you'll see a little decimal popping up in there real quick.
Basically, if we jammed up our snap a lot more, you could see that in greater detail.
Right.
And now let's get into selection sets.
Okay.
Let's say we want to select a group of objects, and then we want to assign a label to that selection. We would use this up here, the named selection sets box. So let's call this fun objects.
Because they're fun.
Yes,
they are very fun. I've been having a lot of fun just watching them. Really.
I can tell. You look like you're having fun.
Oh, yeah.
So let's say we want to get back and quickly select all 3 objects. We can go to this drop-down, click Fun Objects, and now they're selected again.
Cool.
And if we want to ever edit any of these selections, let's say we just want to call this one Spheres.
Never saw that coming.
I know. Spheres. Now we hit Edit Name Selection Sets, and now we can actually go through. We could delete Fun Objects if we wanted to and just keep Spheres on there.
Nice.
And now Fun Objects is no longer present.
Very cool.
Okay, let's move right along. Let's talk about the Mirror tool. This allows you to take an object and duplicate it across a given axis. And
you can see where this would be very handy in doing something like modeling half of a head.
Or half of anything.
Or half of, I'll go with anything, half of a Twinkie.
And then quickly mirroring it to the other side.
That's
anything
right.
that is symmetrical.
That's right.
Now, let me, I do have to do one thing in order to demonstrate this. Let me go ahead and go down to our world coordinate system.
Okay.
And then I'm going to hit the mirror tool.
Mm-hmm.
And now I want to mirror it. See how it's kind of jumped over to the other side along X? It is mirrored along X. So now if we hit copy, this is actually copying it to the other side, creating a new object.
Cool. Very cool.
And then keep on moving. We'll talk about the align tool.
Mm-hmm.
This allows us to take an object and then align it to another object.
Now, that's something
sort
that
of like lining it up.
It's real easy to overlook the importance of alignment at first.
Without a doubt.
The more you get into 3D, the more you start working with 3D scenes, the more you're going to find yourself relying on the align tool for a lot of different things, from moving objects to relocating pivots, lots of different things.
Sure. Okay, and then moving on, identifying our icons here. We're going to talk about the Layer Manager, which allows you to group objects and different ways to organize them if you wanted to very quickly hide certain entities in your scene, kind of like allowing you to manage your scene.
Right, and we won't really be going too heavily into it right now. You really can talk about the Layer Manager for a little bit all by itself.
Yes.
So there it is. We'll be using it throughout our scenes a little bit later.
Sure. And continuing our march through the toolbar, we have the curve editor.
Oh, yeah.
This allows us to adjust animation curves.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that we will be spending a great deal of time with later on when we start getting into animation.
And now we have the schematic view, which we did allude to a little bit earlier. And this allows us to control, basically to look at our scene in a different way.
See relationships.
Right.
Kind of view our scene in a node-based format.
Absolutely. And then we have the material editor up here. And this allows us to apply...
allows us to create paint.
It's our paint mixer!
Yeah! And then, now we have the render controls up here. This is the render scene dialog. This brings up the render scene that we actually talked about in the menu video.
Cool.
We have the different types of rendering, different ways that we can control rendering different parts of our scene. And then the quick render button.
And all of these things that Bill has shown from selection sets over to the right are things we're going to be using in great detail throughout our project.
Right, there's really no reason to harp on them and beat them into the ground right now because they're going to become so commonplace as we
will be
dig through
introducing
projects.
you to the dialogues and the different options within the dialogues as we progress into each of these projects.
Sure. So that's the main toolbar.
Ta-da!
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
So with that, that's going to conclude this video. Again, we're not asking you guys to memorize everything we've shown you. We're just
Yes, we are.
giving you a slow introduction to each of the different things available inside of 3ds Max. And as we progress further and further into this course, we will begin beating each of these things more and more.
Yeah, you're going to find that a lot of the stuff that you've seen up here, whether you understood it or not, is going to become second nature the more you start working with scenes inside of 3ds Max. So don't really grind yourself over it just now.
Sure.
It's going to come to you.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thanks.